Hello friends, welcome to JavaEE EJB JPA tutorial. In this video, we are going to see how to use Eclipse tool for JPA development. So here in this video, we are not going to make any code change. Here we will just learn how to use the Eclipse tools for JPA. Since here we are going to learn the Eclipse tools for JPA, this video is required. So that means you need to configure the connection details inside the Eclipse IDE. So this is optional. Without using JPA tools, you can still develop the JPA applications. But if you have the SQL Server connection configured inside the Eclipse, the SQL Server connection will validate the field mappings. That means Java class to the database mapping is there, right? So that will be validated using this connection. So there are two connections here you are seeing. One is the configuration SQL Server connection detail given to Eclipse, and then SQL Server connection detail given to Wildfly. So Wildfly is our middleware and this is our IDE. Alright, for this video, this connection details are required. So here are the preview of previous videos. So here if you see, we hand coded everything, right? Now what happens if there is some mistake here? So balance, let's say we cut down this E. There is a spell mistake, right? And we are stating that a table name is a saving account and column name as BALANC without E. So that means there is no column here in the target database. So at present, the Eclipse IDE won't do any validation because Eclipse don't know how to connect to the database. Wildfly server knows, but Eclipse don't know how to connect to this database. So it won't do the validation. So if you want the validation to happen, then Eclipse should know the connection details. That means Eclipse should know how to connect to this PUBs database of the SQL Server. So in the previous video, we made our entity class ready. Even without this video and JPA tool, you can proceed. You can directly skip to the next video and proceed. But learning these JPA tools will be useful. And yeah, that's what we are going to see here in this video. So Eclipse IDE suits well for JPA and DB development through its tools. It supports making entry in persistence.xml. It also helps adding the JPA annotation. If you see in the previous video, we added the annotations like ID column, ID generated value, everything manually. With the use of Eclipse tools for JPA, we can make entries in the persistence.xml. So making entry in persistence.xml doesn't require a DB connection, but if we want to add annotation and if we want to validate the SQL Server database field to JPA class field mapping, and if we want to validate that, we need the connection detail in the Eclipse itself. Okay, Eclipse IDE tools for JPA requires setting up the target DB connection. So that's part of the prerequisite. That's what we talked about as part of the prerequisite. So this video becomes mandatory only for this specific video for using the JPA tools. Okay, so without using the JPA tools also, one can develop the EJB JPA application. That's why setting up the connection in Eclipse is optional. That's why we specified this one as optional and 09 as mandatory. Why? Because that's the SQL connection detail given to the Wildfly server, and the Wildfly server should know which database we want to persist the data. Alright. Here we will see some of the Eclipse IDE technique to work with the entities and DB column mapping and other stuffs. Let's go to the demo and start using the tools. So this is our workspace. We will load this. So the workspace is loaded. So this is our JPA entity project, and this is our persistence.xml. In the source, if you see, we have a persistent unit, and the unit is named as JPA savings account. And if I go to the general tab, you can see that graphically, I mean through UI, the name for our persistent the persistent unit name is JPA savings account. So under JPA content, so we expanded this node JPA content. Here we are right clicking this, then we are choosing the option Synchronize class list. So here this is our class, right, savings account, and once you choose this option, if you see manager class, JPA automatically added this entry using the option Synchronize class list. And when we go to the source, you can see it made an entry. Persistence unit name is a JPA savings account, and this persistent unit is managing a class tube coding examples JPA entity. Up to this, it's our package name. In the previous video, this is the package name we gave, then we gave savings account as the class name, and you can see how the synchronized class list is adding this entry inside our persistent unit. Previously this is not there, right? So now we made that entry. Next, here we told that this is the persistent unit class, and we have to tell the connection detail right here in the persistence.xml. So what we have to do, first let me cross check which profile this one is loading. So this is our server, right, Wildfly server. So runtime environment, and here it is showing standalone.xml. So we will browse. Then we will open this in the notepad. So as part of the prerequisite, we configured SQL Server for the wildfly, right? Now let's check the entry, and here you are seeing data source JTA equal to true, and JNDA name is MS SQL DS data source. So this is our JNDA name. Then you can see the connection URL is localhost, the same machine in which the SQL Server is running, and the database name is pubs. And of course here this is the SCA, and here I am using Rohit as the password for my SQL Server instance. So what is important here is the JNDA name. I'm copying this. So once we copy this, let's cancel. Now we can go to the persistence.xml. So here I'm choosing the connection tab, and then JTA source, we are specifying our JNDA name. We will save this. Now let's go back to the source, and you can see persistent unit. Previously we added the class, now we added the JTA data source. So the JTA data source tells where is the database, and these are all the, we at present we have only one entity class. If we are managing multiple tables, then you may be seeing multiple entries here. So in this video course we will be adding more entity classes, and towards the end you may be seeing some 6 or 7 entries here. Okay, at this moment what you have to understand is a persistent unit is a JPA savings account. This will be useful when we are mapping the entity manager, and we will do that later. Then there are 2 parts. One is the class, entity class, and another one is the database connection information. So this we already configured in the wildfly. It's part of the prerequisite, and this one is mandatory. So now in our savings account class, that's all here, persistence.xml content is over. We will close this. And in the savings account, if you see, we have some of the database details. Now all this stuff comes into handy now, because in the persistence XML we resolved all the conflict. We linked this class to our persistence.xml. Now the wildfly environment knows that the persistent unit manages this savings account entity class, and it knows the table and column details based on the data source which we specified in the persistence.xml. Now to validate some of the fields, so now we will validate this field. To do that, first we will go to the database perspective. Then we will connect to this SQL Server old profile. We will provide the password. So our database is connected here. Now we will switch to JavaEE Perspective. Then here we will choose, here if you see, I renamed this from balance to balance. Okay, let me keep it as balance, and here we'll go to property JPA, and we will choose SQL Server World, and it shows the Eclipse is already connected to this, because using the database perspective we connected it to the SQL Server. Now let's click apply and say OK. Here changing the name as Bolans here. Person name, I am cutting it as person name. Now here I'm saving all the content, and if you see, since Eclipse knows how to connect to the database, it shows the error and it says column Bolans cannot be resolved on table savings AC. The same happens here as well. So what we can do, we can switch to JPA Perspective. Of course, we can directly rename it here. We know what the error is, but if you see here, I choose JPA Perspective. Then under JPA structure, I'm choosing BAL. Here in the JPA details, so this is the saving account table, and BAL, if you see, the column name is not there. So balance is not there, but we have balance. So once I click this, it will make the change here. Balance. Similarly, I am clicking the P name. Table name is the default savings account, and the column name is person name. Now when I click save all, those errors are gone. Also, if you want to make annotations, you can do it using this JPA structure and JPA detail view. And if you see this PID mapped to person ID, table is a savings, and here you are seeing the primary key generation also, because it is reading this generated value attribute and it is populating it, identity. And if you want to make some annotation here, you can simply use this tool and the annotation will get added automatically. So for example, here I'm choosing person name. This is person name, right? If I choose, if you pick a different field, it will automatically change the annotation. Also, see here I am adding a newer annotation, and it shows at basic fetch equal to eager. So that's the use of JPA tool. Now let us reset it back, everything. Now first we will choose these properties. We will choose it as none, apply. We will disconnect our SQL Server Vault. Now we will switch to JavaEE Perspective, and we will check whether our application is loading properly. So first we will start the server. So server is started. Next we will publish our archive file, EAR file, which contains 4 projects. So I'm clicking Ctrl F, MS SQL, and we can see that started driver with the driver name MS SQL Server 12, which is nothing but our, this is not JNDA name, this is a driver. We should still search, and yeah, this is our JNDA name. So the Eclipse is bound to this JNDA name, and our JPA project also ready. So in the next coming videos we will create EJB bean and entity manager to talk to this entity, and finally we will create a servlet or a JSP file to add a account, to add a new savings account. That's all here in this video. Thank you for watching. Bye.